Hey there, welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm excited because I'm sharing a pasta recipe video and I have yet to do that on my channel in the past year. So today I'm going to be sharing with you 4 pasta recipes that we've made and some that we've tried brand new this past week. I hope you enjoy. Let's go ahead and get started. First up today we're making a buffalo chicken pasta. Into a big pot of water, I'm going to add 1 chicken bouillon cube and I'm going to let that kind of dissolve in there. Let my water just kind of come to a boil and then add in my 2 chicken breasts to cook in there. Once my chicken breasts were done, I actually just went ahead and added them into my mixing bowl and shredded them using my KitchenAid mixer, but you can use 2 forks, that'll work just fine. Once my chicken was shredded, I went ahead and added in some ranch dressing. The original recipe calls for blue cheese dressing, but I just cannot stand blue cheese, so I went ahead and used ranch. I used a little bit more than a half cup, not quite 3/4 of a cup, just a little over a half cup of ranch dressing. Got that mixed together and set that aside for right now. Next, I'm chopping up half of a yellow onion into nice small pieces. I do keep my celery in the freezer. I buy when it's on sale, chop it up, and then I just have it ready to go. There's about a half cup of diced celery here. Into my pot, I'm adding about 2 tablespoons of butter, and I'm going to add my celery and my onion in there and cook these until they are tender, and for me that took about 12-ish minutes. Once they were tender and most of that liquid from the onion and celery had evaporated, I went ahead and added about 1 tablespoon of minced garlic and I let that cook in there for an additional minute. Next, I'm adding in 1 15-ounce can of diced tomatoes, and then I'm also adding in 4 cups of chicken broth. I did use a low sodium chicken broth. I got everything well combined and then I let this come to a boil. Once everything is boiling, I'm going to add 16 ounces or 1 pound of pasta. You can use any pasta that you want to, you just need to make sure you add at least 1 pound. I'm going to get this covered in here as well as I can with all of this liquid, let it return to a boil. At that point, I'll add the lid onto my pot and let this go for about 10 minutes until the pasta has cooked all the way through. I did stir the pasta once or twice while it was cooking, and once it was done and all the liquid was gone, I added in a half cup of buffalo sauce and 8 ounces of room temperature cream cheese. One cup of shredded mozzarella cheese, and about 1.5 cups of cheddar cheese. Now that everything's in my pot, I'm going to get this all mixed together, making sure to really get that cheese mixed in so it doesn't clump together. Once everything's mixed in and it looks like it's pretty well melted down, I'm going to add in my shredded chicken and get that combined as well. I added a small shake of red pepper flakes in there as well, just to amp up that heat a little bit more, but that's definitely an optional step. Once my pasta was all done, the chicken had warmed through, we went ahead and ate it just like this with a little extra ranch over the top. This was pretty good, honestly. This was the first time we tried this recipe, so I'll be linking the original recipe down below for you if you want to try it out for yourself. Now we're going to be making this spinach and mushroom chicken pasta. I really enjoyed this pasta because the sauce is pretty light. It's not super heavy, so it didn't feel like I was stuffing myself on a hot summer day. To get started, I had 2 chicken breasts that I went ahead and sliced in half. I like to do this just because it helps my chicken cook a little faster, and then I have more of the chicken that's been cooked and added with seasoning, and I just like it better this way. But if you just want to cook the chicken breast in 2 solid pieces, you totally can do that. Next, I'm slicing up 1 yellow onion, and then I'm also going to slice up 8 ounces of mushrooms. Over to my pot, I'm adding 1 tablespoon of butter as well as about a tablespoon of olive oil. I'm going to let those melt down and heat up together and then add my chicken in there to cook. I did go ahead and cook my chicken in 2 batches since they were pretty big pieces of chicken. And I did season both sides with some salt, pepper, and garlic powder. My chicken cooked on both sides until it got this nice, pretty golden color to it, which took about 3 to 4 minutes per side. Once all my chicken was cooked through, I removed it over to a plate for right now, and then into the same pot with all of the juices from the chicken, I'm adding in my sliced onion and mushroom, and we're going to cook these in here until they are nice and tender. This took me about 10 minutes. Next, I'm adding in 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. I'm going to stir this together and let it cook for an additional minute. Now I'm adding in a 1/2 cup of beef broth. You can also use chicken broth. I just had the beef on hand, so I went ahead and used that one. I got that mixed together and I used my spoon to make sure I got all the pieces of chicken off the bottom to really deglaze that pan. Now I'm adding in 1 cup of heavy whipping cream and a 1/2 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. I did use the Parmesan cheese that you use for like spaghetti, but I would definitely recommend using regular, freshly grated Parmesan cheese. It just melts down better, especially in a recipe like this where there's other things that it's melting down with. I'm also adding a 1/4 cup of frozen spinach, and then for my seasonings, I added 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a 1/2 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, and then I salt and pepper to taste. I said probably use about 1/2 teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, but definitely do that part to taste. Once I made sure that all my cheese had completely melted through and it became a nice cream sauce, I added in 1 box, which I believe is 14 ounces of bow tie pasta, but you definitely can use a different pasta if you want to. I went ahead and just got that all mixed together. I decided not to make anything else with this tonight. We just had it just like this. And let me tell you, I love this pasta. It's a great summer pasta in my opinion, just because it's not super heavy with sauce. I don't know what it is exactly about it, but the sauce is very, very light. It's not a heavy coating, and it's really delicious, has really good flavor as well. So definitely try this one if you haven't tried it before. Next, I am going to be sharing a meatless tomato tortellini with you. For those of you that like to have meatless meal nights, this is perfect. I started by getting a pot of water boiling for my tortellini, and once it was boiling, I added in 18 ounces of cheese tortellini. I cooked that according to the package directions, and when it was done, I drained off all the liquid, and I let my tortellini just sit in my colander for a moment. Into my pot, I'm adding in 1 tablespoon of butter and 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, and I'm going to let that cook in here for about a minute or so. Once that garlic has cooked for a minute, I'm going to add in 14 ounces of a can of tomato sauce. Make sure you're not using a marinara. I'm just using a plain tomato sauce at this point. I used that to kind of scrape the bottom and make sure I got all the garlic off the bottom of the pan so it wouldn't burn. And then I added in about a tablespoon of tomato paste. Next, you'll add in 1 cup of heavy cream, and I'm just going to get this mixed together really good at this point. This sauce is so easy to make, and my husband actually really loves this recipe. Even though it is meatless, he's definitely a meat eater, but this sauce is really flavorful. It's definitely more flavorful than just buying a jar of spaghetti sauce from the store. Next, for my seasonings, I'm adding a ½ teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a little bit of salt and pepper. I think that you definitely need to gauge that yourself and add as much as you want. And then I'm also adding about a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, and then I'm just going to get that mixed together really good. Definitely recommend using a whisk for this part, just because you can really make sure that those seasonings get incorporated really well and they're not all in big clumpy pieces in the sauce. I let my sauce go ahead and just thicken up over a low heat for about 10 minutes. Once it had thickened up, I added in my cooked tortellini and got that mixed together. At this point, it's going to look a little bit soupy, but we're actually going to add in some Parmesan cheese right now. I added about a 1/4 cup of shredded Parmesan cheese and I mixed that together so it could melt in through the sauce. Once all the cheese has melted, you can go ahead and serve it. So this is what mine looked like on my plate. I added some more freshly grated Parmesan cheese and some parsley. If you don't want to have a meatless meal, you can also add in some chicken to this or some Italian sausage. That would be really good as well. But overall, this is a really simple and quick meal to make. Last but not least, we are going to make some lasagna roll-ups. I started by getting a pot of water boiling and I did add some salt in there. While I was waiting on that to boil, I went ahead and started my sausage in another skillet. For this recipe, I used 1 pound of Italian sausage. This one is spicy, but you do not have to use spicy if you do not want to. I like the spice. I think it makes it more flavorful in the end. I removed all the sausages from their casings, and then I just broke them up so they would be ground sausage. Once my sausage was about halfway cooked, I added in a ½ cup of frozen spinach. Again, I just used my meat masher to kind of break those up a little bit, and I'm gonna let this frozen spinach melt down and cook in here with the sausage until the sausage is all the way cooked through. Once my sausage is done cooking, I'm just going to remove all the grease and any extra liquid from the spinach from the pan. Now I'm adding in 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. I'm gonna let this cook in here for about 1 minute to 2 minutes until I can really smell the garlic. Then I'll just remove this from the heat and let this sit and cool down while I wait for my noodles to get done. It seems like my pots of water never want to boil on the stove. It takes forever. So once it starts bubbling, I go ahead and add my pasta in. I'm going to cook this lasagna according to the box directions and just take it out 2 minutes before it's supposed to be done according to those directions. If you set your lasagna noodles in here, they will eventually fall into the water. It just takes a moment for them to get soft. When your lasagna noodles are done, go ahead and drain those and then add some cold water over top of them. That way you're able to touch them and they don't burn your fingers off. While we're waiting on the noodles to cool down, into this bowl I'm adding 15 ounces of ricotta cheese, 1 egg, 1 tablespoon of parsley, a ½ teaspoon of garlic powder, about a 1/4 teaspoon, maybe a little less, of pepper, and about a 1/4 teaspoon to a ½ teaspoon of salt. Honestly, add as much salt and pepper as you think is necessary. You can't really taste this because the egg is raw, of course, but just kind of add what you think is necessary. I got this mixed together really well before adding anything else. Next, I'm going to add in some shredded cheese. I'm adding 1 cup of shredded mozzarella cheese. I like to use the whole milk mozzarella. I think it's a lot creamier. And then I'm also using 1 cup of Italian blend cheese. Be sure to save the rest of your Italian style cheese because that's going to go on top of this when it's done. Now that our filling is ready to go and the lasagna noodles have cooled down enough to touch, I'm just going to line them up on my cutting board so I can fill them all at once. I added about 3 tablespoons per noodle, and you want to make sure you leave about 1 inch to 2 inches at the end of the noodle, because when you roll these up it will push all the filling to the end, and you want to make sure you leave lots of room so it doesn't spill out too much. Once the cheese filling is in, I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle on a little bit of our sausage and spinach mixture. You definitely don't have to go too heavy on the sausage, you just need a little bit in each one. Now go ahead and start rolling up these lasagna rolls. It's super easy to do. Just roll them right on up as tight as you can without pushing out too much of the filling, and we're going to transfer these over to a casserole dish. As you can see, I did add just a little bit of pasta sauce to the bottom of the dish, that way the lasagna rolls don't stick. As you roll them up, go ahead and just line them up in here. And I did have 2 extra noodles when it was all said and done, but I used all of my filling up. But it's okay to have those extra noodles, because if one of them did happen to break, you can replace it with one of those noodles. So make sure you do cook the whole box. I did end up cooking 2 extra lasagna roll-ups in another pan. It was just a small cake pan, just so they didn't go to waste. And before we stick these in the oven, we're going to take some spaghetti sauce. You can use whatever flavor that you want to. You just want to pour that entire thing on top. Spread it around as best as you can, because if they are showing, they will get hard in the oven. This went in the oven for about 25 minutes to start. I did not cover it, I left it uncovered, but if you want to cover it, feel free. After 25 minutes, this is what it looked like. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of my cheese on there. We're going to use the rest of that Italian style blend, or you can add mozzarella on top. Mozzarella does tend to melt a little better. Either way, go ahead and add about another cup of cheese over the top. This went back in the oven for an additional 15 minutes to finish cooking and let that cheese melt on the top. Here's what it looked like when it came out of the oven with the cheese. This did cook a total of 40 minutes. You want to make sure that egg gets done inside. This is what my plate looked like when it was all done. I love these. Lasagna roll-ups are just so good. It's a little different than having regular lasagna, so it's nice to mix it up a little bit. I did just serve this with a side salad, kept it very simple. These were super filling, and I actually had enough to put in some freezer containers and save for later. Thank you guys so very much for watching today. Leave me a flower down in the comments if you made it all the way to the end. I love to see it. I really hope you'll come back on Sunday. I'll have a new video up then. Bye guys!